I have to say that I'm past the point now of thinking that this can be stopped. On average, a majority of Britons do not believe that politics can solve problems in society.
Can anything be done? Is this a one-way road? Are we going to hit a civil war? It might be a small one, a big one, we don't know. Can it be stopped? If it can be stopped, do we have the right politicians in this country to change course, to do the things that need to be done? And what are those things that would have to be done?
I have to say that I'm past the point now of thinking that this can be stopped. And that is, and the reason I say that relates to this second or third part of your question. Do we have the sorts of politicians who could do this? And the answer is no. We don't. In some respects, what I've just described as a civil war, others might say, well, look, this looks like a peasant revolt. This is more like a revolution. And I think that's actually that's a valid remark that I've heard from time to time. And if you do think of it in terms of revolt, well, you have a revolt when people have determined essentially that the situation cannot be changed internally, that the status quo cannot heal itself, that you cannot solve the situation through normal politics. And again, the British government's own research on this matter is very clear that people do not believe that on average, a majority of Britons do not believe that politics can solve problems in society. So if one simply accepts this, which I do, then it makes no logical sense to believe that politics is somehow going to just come up with solutions to this. Even without reading a newspaper or looking into what the government is actually doing at this time. If you do, however, go and look at what government is actually doing, then the situation is that much worse, because it's not just that they're not capable; they're clearly not interested. There is no single sign, I feel, on the part of the current government, and it must be said also of the previous government, that they are likely to do anything that is useful, or even to begin to behave neutrally with respect to aggravating the problem. So I don't feel that much can be done. I also, I am a bit going to dodge your question. I mean, I don't think that maybe you can ask a political scientist, but I don't think a professor of war studies is probably an individual professor of war studies is probably the right person to ask how to heal what is a very significant societal issue. I think, if anything, and I feel it's very unlikely that the answer to the problem you pose is going to emerge from academia. If anything is going to work, it is that society is going to heal itself. Now, this may make some people very nervous, because they might conclude that civil war is the answer. And ultimately, I feel actually, again, that probably most people are going to conclude that. Hence its inevitability. But if there is an answer that is not a violent social rupture, then it has to emerge organically from society. And for that for that to occur, people have to we have to bring this problem out into the open. It must be discussed openly. The tendency of people, perhaps particularly British people, to kind of look away from unpleasantness and tend to think, well, it'll all work out in the end. That has to stop, I feel. The matter has to be brought into the light of day, and people need to be impressed with the full potential of the situation to develop in ways that are very tragic for the country and quite possibly for them personally, and then perhaps we might see emerging ideas about how it can be prevented. But as I said, from a personal point of view, I am skeptical of this, of the potential of this. I would give it, I'd basically give it at best a 50-50.
50-50, wow. I agree with you to a certain extent, as in, if we're looking, and this is what we've been doing for 50 years now, we keep looking towards the government to fix our problems. And every decade, the government makes everything worse and worse and worse. And now we're heading to civil war. And if we keep looking towards the government to fix this, then we are going to have a civil war. We need people of this country to start rejecting the big state and start fixing their own lives, their own communities. And from that, we may avoid the civil war and end up with a better country.